Hello everyone and welcome to the program. And we kick off with the former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mohammed Adoke. He begins the bail application over alleged complicity in the Malibu oil scam and other count charges levelled by the federal government, as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission also filed a counter bail application today at the Federal High Court, Abuja. Mr. Adoke returned to the country from the United Arab Emirates on December the 19th, where he was handed over to the EFCC and also remanded in its custody on December the 20th. The EFCC got a court injunction to detain Mr. Adoke for 14 days for proper documentation and filing of the allegations. We'll bring you an update on that story as soon as we get it. In the meantime, Senate spokesman Godiya Akwashiki has been responding to the public outcry against plans by the National Assembly to spend the sum of 37 billion naira to renovate the National Assembly complex. Now, he says the Assembly complex is in urgent need of repairs after 20 years, explaining that the lawmakers merely drew the attention of the Federal Capital Development Authority, FCDA, to the state of disrepair. He says the FCDA and not the National Assembly will handle the award of contracts for the renovation of the complex.
The issue is solely the issue of FCDA, because this structure belongs to FCDA. I have read it in the net that people, the Syrians are trying to take the National Assembly to court. For what? I don't understand. Because the National Assembly complex belongs to FCDA. The main responsibility of the FCDA, of the leadership of the Senate or House of Representatives, is to inform Mr. President that this structure is in the state of collapse. So, Mr. President, it is left from the President of the Executive now to tell the owners of the National Assembly complex to send their technical officers, the architecture, the building engineer, to find out which area and what attention they need in the National Assembly. How they count about the 37 billion is not the issue of the National Assembly. It's purely the issue of the FCDA. And let me tell the general public, it is the FCDA that are going to award the contract. And 10 kobo of this 37 billion is not coming to the National Assembly account. It's going straight to the FCDA. So if they said they should not renovate it, so be it. Our prayer is that the day the structure will collapse, it should not take anybody's life.
The concern is because the National Assembly approved it. It was in the budget, and the National Assembly had the leeway not to approve it.
The National Assembly approved the budget just like we approve other budgets. We approve construction of road from Lagos to Ibadan. We approve construction of road from Enugu to Owerri. We approve the construction of road from Abuja to Makurdi. It's the same. The sole responsibility of the National Assembly is to approve budget for the executive arm of government to implement. So this one is not different.
Elsewhere, the Minister of Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed, insists that the federal government has recorded tremendous progress in its fight against corruption, recovering loot and prosecution of alleged corrupt persons. Mr. Mohammed says this is the first time in Nigeria the fight against corruption is being sustained by such a strong political will by the president of the country.
The administration's fight against corruption is progressing on all fronts, including institutional reforms, loot recovery, and prosecution of alleged corrupt persons. This is not the first time Nigeria is fighting the cankerworm of corruption, but it is the first time that the fight is being backed.
The Information Minister also took time to enumerate the government's performance in the fight against terrorism. He also pointed out that there is, no Nigerian territory under the control of insurgents.
Women in uniform stepped up the fight against terrorism in 2019, despite the fact that they are not just fighting the rump of Boko Haram, but also the Islamic State West African province, ISWAP. Yes, they occasionally attack sub-targets from the French islands of Chad, where they have been confined by our troops, but they don't hold any territory like they did before the advent of this administration. I'm happy to say that the effect of the border drill has been phenomenal. Today, Nigeria is close to attaining self-sufficiency in rice production than at any time in the country's history, thanks to the border drill. that has drastically reduced rice smuggling into the country and catalyzed rice production by farmers across the country.
For more perspectives on the performance of the federal government in 2019, especially in the areas of anti-corruption and security, we have our guests joining us from Abuja. First, Mr. Bwala is a lawyer and a member of the All Progressives Congress. Also, Mr. Ken Okolugbo, a member of the People's Democratic Party and a public affairs analyst, is joining us from Port Harcourt, I believe, via Skype. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this it's New Year's Eve now. If I may begin with you, Mr. Okolugbo. You've heard the Minister of Information giving the score sheet of the federal government, talking about two major cardinal points of the president, and that is scoring him high on security and also anti-corruption. Are you impressed, especially seeing as 2019 is coming to an end? All right, perhaps I'll come back to you, Ken. Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. The fact is that I'm actually joining you from Delta State, which is my state.
Thank you.
On the issue of security, it is quite obvious that most of the times that we have been told that the war on Boko Haram has been won, we've always come back to the same template, which is we are winning the war, we are controlling the territories, and that we are going to against security. The war on Boko Haram should not be one that should be played in terms of politics. But we remember 200 planes were ordered from United States of America to aid us in the war. We have not seen most of these external expenditures that were done with about $1 billion as at that time that was approved, and the equipment that were brought in. Most of the complaints that our soldiers have had is that they have fought with substandard equipment and substandard materials in the war front. And except we're trying to deceive ourselves, the truth is that Borno is still largely under attack by the Boko Haram forces. The beheading of the 10 Christians was a very sad aspect of the end of the year activities in terms of the military securing of most of those volatile areas of Adamawa and Borno. And the truth is, like the Christian Association of Nigeria has said, we're tired of being condoled with the countless of killings. A lot has to be done in terms of security. And on the issue of anti-corruption, I have said it times without number that the corruption should be given a human face, in the sense that it should be all-encompassing and should not be one that is done on the altar of a political expediency.
Let's talk to Mr. Bwala right now. I mean, also the information minister talked about corruption, and he said something that Nigeria scored highest convictions, and this is globally, in 2019, also suggesting that the federal government led by President Buhari isn't being selective in this. I mean, this seemed to be quite a feat for the federal government.
Right, yes. The anti-corruption fight, why we have considerable success over the last 1 year, is because, if you recall, we have been drumming it over and over in all forums that the anti-corruption agency will have to give the ownership of the fight to the Nigerian people. So we find a situation where people provide what you call whistleblowing, people provide intelligence. We have all the other agencies of government, not just the EFCC, involved actively in the fight against corruption by providing information, by arresting individuals, by blocking money and wiretap laws. All of these things are joint activities of the various agencies of the government, which is bringing results. And EFCC, of course, to leading the fight. And it is not today, this is not the first time I have been saying, and it bears repeating, that we also need reform in the EFCC. We need a strategic change in the way and in the manner we approach the fight, so that we don't lose sight of the main focus of the fight. But the number is real, and anybody who is in doubt of the success rate of the anti-corruption fight can go ahead and do his investigative journalism The fact that people would always say it is selective, it is selective, it is selective. It is better to have half filled than the half empty or something policy. And then secondly, there is no way you provide intelligence against somebody who, for example, is in this government, that the anti-graft body will not go ahead to investigate the person and hopefully to prosecute the person. And it bears repeating, we said it before, we will say it today and say it tomorrow. The last 3 successes in terms of the conviction of former governors who are members of APC is enough fact to disprove the allegation that it is a one-sided fight. But of course, if a government comes in to fight corruption, you have to start by probing the government that came before you. So definitely the volume of people to be investigated and prosecuted will be the volume of people that came from the last administration. So in
but this same government, if I may, Mr. Bwala, this same government has been scored low in terms of human rights.
Right. So the human right, you see, the brouhaha, to be honest with you, let me give you another perspective. Most of the people who are in the forefront of the outcry against the government's fight against human rights are also biased in their way of projecting the message. For example, you know that somewhere in the Niger Delta, a governor arrested somebody and he charged the person for treason, a journalist. Have you seen any of these PDP members in the forefront of the fight against that governor, of criticism of that government? They kept mute like nothing happened. But if it involves this government, they will find ways of talking. So I prefer to have a conversation with somebody who is unbiased, who is neutral. And then I can tell him, this is not the first time I have said, and I will keep saying, that if the court gives an order, this government or next government or previous government must obey. That is the principles of the law. But apart from 1 or 2 isolated cases that people have always hammered on, in a nutshell, have we not seen the rule of law where somebody who steals now will have to be charged to court? In those days, you can steal and walk the street and nothing will happen. In those days, you can flaunt the riches, the proceeds of the crime, and nothing will happen. But in this time, if you steal, you face the wrath of the law. So why
Back
don't
to
we
Mr.
look at it
Okolugbo.
holistically? Why are we making a one-sided argument?
Mr. Okolugbo, good to have you right back. We just heard from Mr. Bwala, who said that it appears, some members of the opposition have been selective in their criticism. So we're talking about human rights and the fact that the federal government has been scored low in this regards in 2019. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the truth about it is not about one being selective in terms of criticism. The fact is very clear. The fact that the score was not done by us or by any other group of external bodies clearly shows that this government has to step up its human rights approach towards the citizens. Saying that you released
appear to be having a problem with the Skype. We do apologize, Mr. Okolugbo. And finally, Mr. Bwala, what do you hope to see 2020? A lot of people have loads of expectations for the federal government and for the year 2020. As brief as you can, 30 seconds perhaps. What do you hope? What should we be expecting?
Right. So in the 3-pronged approach that we have always consistently talked about, beginning with security, I'm expecting that the president will rejig the security architecture. I'm expecting that the president will do the necessary thing that is required in making the necessary changes of the heads of some of the security organizations so we can have a very energetic and vibrant fight. In respect to the anti-graft body, there is also need for a structural change, even in the way and the manner the EFCC operates, because you cannot keep doing one thing over and over and expect a different result. There is need for us to look at everything holistically and improve on what we have seen. So 2019, we have seen 1,000 plus. We are hoping that by 2020, we'll see more than 4,000, and we will see high-profile cases prosecuted.
We appreciate your time. We'd like to thank you, Mr. Daniel Bwala and Mr. Okolugbo. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy holidays.